Hey there, everybody. I hope you are doing well. Thanks for being here, coming back to the channel. If you've been hanging out with me before, I'm always glad to have you here. I really do appreciate you. Please continue to hit the like button. I appreciate you subscribing. And because I don't tape every day, make sure you want to hit the notifications bell. That way you'll get notified whenever I do a taping. So thank you so very much. If you're just landing on the channel, I'm a Fefe with Touch by Tarot and Beyond. I've been doing reading tarot for about 30 years now, and I'm also a former newspaper journalist. So I try to approach, I'm pretty grounded in my readings, and I try to have my facts straight before we go to spirit and get deeper insight into what's going on. And finally, I am also an initiated priestess in both Wiccan and African traditions. So been out here for a minute, you can tell been around for around the block a few times, got a few things on my plate, and I try to use all those things to give you some good content. No shortage of things to look at, right? Most of my readings are political, but I do spiritual based pick a card readings twice a month for the new moon and the full moon. All right, so please spread the word. I hope you like the vibe. Stick around. And again, for those of you who've been with me, I never take it for granted. I appreciate you being here. This is a community. I want this platform to serve as a community. I love watching you exchange in the comment section with one another. I only ask always that we be respectful toward one another and allow our voices and opinions to be heard in a respectful manner. Enough said about that. Couple of things. How about Jim Clyburn? Still early on my end, y'all. I got look. Let me sip my suja juice and get it together. So Clyburn had hosted a fish fry in South Carolina this weekend, featuring prominently Tim WALZ and Wes Moore, who's come under fire recently around some reparations decisions he made around that. But that's another topic. But he was apparently, Wes Moore was extremely well received, and he has been, as the country's only black governor, he has been making the rounds with Tim Walz and some others that are going into red states like South Carolina to try and rally the Democratic Party, trying to still address what changes need to be made. You all are very, very aware of that. We're all sitting like, all right, tell us what changes you're making. We're looking out for it. Okay. But what Tim said, Coach Walz, right, live and in effect, he said, look, we've got to fight. And, all of this being so super nice and always, taking the high road and talking in terms of values and that sort of thing. Coach was like, we need to bully the SHIT out of Trump. I was like, okay, Coach. So is he coming for 2028? I think, we see some different moving pieces on the board. Pritzker for sure is coming. Gavin Newsom, you all, what happened? Like, what happened? Definitely moving more of a centrist, and not even going to waste our time with that right now. We'll look at him later because he's coming. He's trying to make a run for it. But Tim Walz, and if in fact this is going to grow in this idea of becoming more fierce in the tone, and downright, he even said, we need to get meaner. We need to get meaner. And that's something that I think a lot of people typically kind of like, well, that's what they're doing. Why would we do the same thing? But I want to take a look at that and see how that's going to work out for Tim Walz, and if in fact there will be a shift in more of a fighting stance as the Democratic Party moves forward. I also just want to take a look in general at Trump's, they're telling me to use his name today, so there it is. All readings for entertainment purposes only, gotta say it. I want to take a look at his June. There were a lot of astrologers and a lot of other readers, many of you are aware, who have said Trump's June was going to be some sort of turning point energetically in terms of what happens for him. We know that the 14th is his birthday. There's this big 250th anniversary, so there's this the military. There's going to be this big parade, but there's all of these ideas around the costs of that, right? And not being forthcoming with what that's really going to cost, because he wanted to do that in his first administration, and it got tanked because it was way too much money and he couldn't justify it. Now it's happening. It's already underway. It's being prepped for. I'm wondering if I'm going to go to Spirit and see if June is really going to be a turning point for Trump. In fact, I want to go ahead and get into that. Spirit, FDT, typically what I call him, the month of June, and will there be a fallout behind this parade? Cost, yes, but I'm also getting, there is a call for nationwide No King's Day protests as well, especially on that day, on the 14th. What is the fallout from that for him? His June. Trump's month of June. What is going to happen? What is his fallout, especially from this parade? Oh, we have an Ace of Cups at the bottom of the deck. 2 aces back to back. All right, we're going to get into some stuff here. Ace of Cups and Ace of Swords. That's the beginning of some. I ain't even going to try and make it up. I want to see. I know that's the beginning of, let's see if it's the beginning of the change in fortune or the turn in the tide. Because he's been, all right. Spirit said, okay, we'll talk to you. 10 of Swords. There's something already. There's this beginning. Typically we see aces, and I certainly do, as I'm sure many readers, it's a positive card. What's to hate about an ace? It comes with potential, promise, newness, things happen. But this coming backed up by that 10 of Swords, yeah. There is something that happens. Let's go into it a little bit deeper, you all. It especially revolves around the 14th in this parade. Five of Wands. Wow. Fighting, arguing. 6 of Wands. Who's going to win? And also that's the military presence as well. I'll tell you, in regards to those aces as well, you all, there are leaders and within the rank and file even of the military who are not happy at all about having what should be really a day dedicated to honoring them and their achievements, 250 years, basically being sucked dry or usurped by Trump's birthday, because that's essentially what this is amounting to. And here's the 4 of Swords. I'm sorry, make that a 5 of Swords. I don't have my glasses on. So we have 2 struggling cards that are coming up right there, you all. We've got that 5 of Wands, and now we have the 5 of Swords. This is a turning point. I don't think it's drastic, like suddenly his place in office is interrupted, sort of thing. But the sentiment, the public sentiment, which is already, and there's the Chariot, people feeling charged up, tired of the obstacles, and taking action. There's going to be a part of that day that is overshadowed. What he's doing in D.C. is going to be overshadowed by what happens across the nation. And even globally, I feel like there's going to be a bit of a global pushback to that. And we have the Knight of Wands. A lot of like catching fire. People saying, did you see this? Can you believe how disrespectful he was to the armed forces? It was supposed to be about them, and he made it all about them. About him. We have the 6 of Pentacles. This is the money that will be spent, and the money that he's looking at furthering his position, knowing, again, everything with him is transactional. Sorry about my voice, you all. I've got incense going in the background. I think I overdid it. But he's got way too much going. He will use this, or he thinks he's going to use this to catapult himself even further with being able to be this transactional president that gets more and more of what he wants. And remember as well, in regards to military, what is happening with that plane from Qatar, right? Justifying the costs. And then we have the tower. Talk about a shift. Talk about a breaking point. There is something that will happen around that time in his June, while he is going into it, coming together, working together, collaborating together. This is going to be, I'm feeling like this is the people at large, combined with the military, combined with other political factions, just neighborhoods, communities, people coming together and saying, wait a minute, you're on the verge of taking away so much from so many, Medicaid cuts, etc. We know all that's coming with the 8 of Swords. Exactly. But this is his administration. They're going to come away from that parade like, wow, yeah, maybe we pumped him up. And yeah, he got what he wanted again. But the cost of the blowback from that, 7 of Swords, the lies that will be told, the lies that are already being told around this, especially around how much it's going to actually cost. They're saying 45 million. And others like, no way, no how. It doesn't, the math is not mathing. I will say, and I'm glad to see this, I don't feel like it's going to be spirit. There's something going on here. My voice never does this, so there's some sort of resistance to this. I don't feel like it's from me. It ain't from me. And here's the Lovers, and that's Gemini. That's his ruling energy. But notice how they're even sort of, the dragonflies are like facing off against each other. There is something that's going to come to a head around the time of this, in June, and the month of June in general. But what really sparks it is this June 14th parade. I think that it is also, what I'm getting is that face off is going to come within his administration, because there's going to be so much blowback. There's going to be a call for an investigation into how much it actually cost. That cost factor, especially with the Senate GOP being faced with the big bill and what to do about that, and cost. So to justify what has happened, this is blowback within his administration, which he certainly relies on to try and form a straight sentence, right? So June is a turning point for him. Does that mean he's out? He's gone? Every time we feel like we're, it's the energy's kind of getting in that direction, lo and behold, here comes some blowback. So I'm not going to go that far, but I am going to say the accountability. He's been riding high. The tariff situation has been, Spirit is saying, he's been coasting. I literally see him like on a surfboard, just riding the waves. He's been able to do that with the on again, off again tariffs, markets going up, then coming down. It's getting ready to crash. All right, you all. Other thing that I learned about and wanted to share, and maybe see what Spirit says about it as well, in terms of women in particular being maintaining their activity and growing in activity to the resistance, right? So much of this got kicked off with women's, the fight against women's reproductive freedoms and all of that, right? But somebody pointed out online, I can't remember what site I saw it on, pink tariffs. And the idea that so much of what is happening and will happen, and the cost to consumers with these tariffs in particular is going to impact women disproportionately impact women, because of how many beauty products women use, right? Skincare, hair, women who use hair extensions, which already can be extremely expensive. If salon treatments in general, I get coloring. I don't know about the rest of you all, but it ain't cheap. All right. So the idea that women, that they want to highlight, especially in the resistance movement, right, and in activist circles and in the Democratic Party, that they should be highlighting the extent to which many of these tariffs are going to impact not just jobs and small businesses and all the other things that we've been seeing, consumer goods in general, but in particular the disproportionate amount of those goods that are used by women. And I have, as soon as I said that, I get the nurturer Pentacles, Queen of Pentacles, who comes. There it is. Talking about the money that it's going to cost women in particular for the things that women use to take care of themselves. Spirit, is that in fact, will that get highlighted? Will that catch on and become a platform or a greater part of the platform for women? We have Knight of Coins. They call it action in this deck. But yes, Knights are movement, but slow. Coins being more dense and slow. So yeah, that's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna catch fire perhaps as much as it should, but I do think it's going to be relevant enough. And the Six of Cups, yes, it's going to be relevant enough to become one of the issues, but not large enough, I think, to to become a pivotal thing. It is something that Spirit is saying it just needs to be highlighted, that women need to understand. In addition, Nine of Cups, exactly. The desire that women had. This is very much a card attached to beauty and women's decisions around what they do to with their appearance, and a lot of that is necessity as well for people who are in women who are in the workforce and in the workplace and having to take care of themselves in a certain to a certain extent. Yeah, that's going to be an issue, you all. And I personally was like, wait a minute, I hadn't thought about that. I was just thinking in that broader term, but that highlights specifically on women who have already, within this toxic manosphere that we're in, who have already been, unduly, mistreated and targeted. There we go again. So, all right, there's that. Finally, you all, I want to take a look at is Pete Hegseth, who has been on thin ice now for quite some time, but then I don't know what fondness Trump has for him, but whatever it is, we also know that with him, things can turn on a dime when it's no longer convenient, right? But here's what I'm wondering, and go to Spirit. So many of you may have heard now Hegseth, who has been kind of trying to go under the radar for a while after he has been under so much heat and pressure, but he now is coming out forcefully around China and going to Singapore and talking to Asian allies around, Taiwan, Singapore, etc., about boosting their defense systems because China is, this big bad force who's getting worse, bigger and badder and worse. There's a tie-in there, you all. I'm getting from Spirit. There's a tie-in there to this so far failure of the administration to get China to budge regarding tariffs. And so they've got to do something. I think Hegseth has been sent out there front and center stage to highlight and sort of promulgate this idea that, everybody should understand the threat that China presents. It's not just about tariffs. It's about, from a military and defense standpoint, what they are capable of, and basically, trying to restart a Cold War or boost a Cold War, which is interesting because I've read a lot, and maybe you have as well, that within the Pentagon, they're saying there's an internal Cold War within the Pentagon, right? Because of his actions. All right, we're taking a look at Action of Swords, Knight of Swords, essentially. That's the messaging that he's been sent out there to do exactly what we're saying. Make China, try and highlight China and put as much international pressure on China as being resistant, as being, a bad player, a bad actor on the global stage. And so that it pressures China to have to divert its resources, more of its resources, to keep itself in check, right? And keep its economy in check, when the goal really is trying to take some of the pressure off of Trump for not being successful. And there we have temperance. Exactly. This is this is a shell game. You know, it's another shell game. And with temperance, there's moderation. So Hegseth has been told, this is what you need to go out there and do, but be careful. Watch yourself. Watch yourself, because we don't want further blowback. We do need China to be ready to negotiate on these tariffs, and if you push too hard. So that is the thin ice, you all. Spirit, is this gonna be go blow back in Hegseth's face? We have the devil. Yeah, that ain't good. And look, in this depiction, you know, inside that cage, Hegseth is not, and there's the world. Spirit is the world here, because there's this will be like one too many things against Hegseth. Is if he mismanages this the end of his. And there's the Empress. Something taken away from him. And this is also because this is the world stage, the economy. This is the production of goods and the ability to trade goods. This is directly tied to tariffs. And with that world, they're putting Hegseth, he's been put out here on this larger stage, because already here at home, there's just nothing but conflict and contempt, so much contempt for him. So he's being sent out there to do this by the government. They call it the teacher, but that's the Hierophant, right? So he's being sent out there as the main mouthpiece now for defense. But the back end of that is what they're really trying to get straight with China, which is the trade war. And trying to force China's hand. And there's the Two of Cups. So he's being sent out there to try and play nice with Asian allies, to say, listen, you know, you want to make sure that you're on the right side of this, because don't lose sight of you know, the threat that China presents to us all. But that world card, you all, and that's, okay, King of Wands, Master of Wands, that's him out there, you know. Listen to what I'm telling you. Here's, you know, U.S. is, as we're still the good guys, and their strength. It's to bolster. Two things are going on. He's trying to bolster these allies, because again, you know, the U.S. has done it since this administration has come in. There's been so much damage done to our allies, especially European allies. So that's part of it. He's being told, get out there and make sure that you establish those ties. But will he succeed? My question, Spirit, is Hegseth going to wind up sinking from this? Will there be something from this that he does not do? Nine of Wands, overwhelmed, out of his depth, doesn't have, you know, clearly doesn't have the skills to handle this, doesn't have the backing, because they fired so many capable people, doesn't have the adequate backing to be able to do it. And there's the Eight of Wands. Is this faster momentum to him, to his demise? In not personal, gotta make sure I say that for entertainment purposes only, but his political demise. Six of Pentacles. He's still got some wiggle room, you all. I wasn't expecting to see that. I thought he was like something's gonna come, and he's still got a little wiggle room. But I will say, and Spirit just confirmed that with the Ace of Coins. When I pull aces, if you're new to me, though, that's when I know. That's how my guides say, yes, I'm on the right track. So keep your eyes on him, though. It's not going to be as drastic as maybe a part of me was hoping, thinking. But he is on thin ice, and he's out of his depth, and ultimately what he's doing, if part of the objective here is to somehow force China's hand in regard, and Xi's hand in regards to the tariffs and negotiating and coming to the negotiating table. It ain't, I don't see that. It is not going to do that. It's going to actually, make China even more, steadfast in their position as well. So, but he's on thin ice. I'm telling you, that man is on thin ice. He might skate through this latest assignment, but he's on thin ice. All right, you all, take really good care. I really appreciate you again. And please spread the word about the channel. I hope you enjoy the content. I am going to, I don't know when. I'm going to do it soon, over the summer. I'm going to start doing some lives so that I can take your questions. I don't want you to think I ignore you when you send questions in the comments, or some people email me. But it's just by the time, if I do all that one by one and put it together, by that time something else has happened and Spirit is telling me to read on something else. So, but I do respect that, and I am going to start doing some lives where I can take your questions, in a live environment, and we do the readings that way. All right, so we'll keep that on the back burner, not too far back. We'll do it soon, sometime over the summer. We'll start doing that. All right, take really good care. Remember, I always close out, chin up, y'all, chin up. Maybe even a little feisty, in the vein of Tim WALZ, bully the shit out of whoever that helps, is trying to diminish and make people feel that they are disempowered. Not happening. So chin up, shoulders back, right? Stay loose, stay confident. Know who you are in the midst of all of this. Don't let anything change who you are and your heart, right? That's the thing that keeps us all alive. Without that, we're in trouble. All right? So remember to breathe. All right? And I'll talk to you real soon. Bye.